Hello, hello, Black Healing Matters family. This is Danielle here at the Black Healing Matters podcast. And today, man, we have a special show in store for you. And I have been praying on this one. I've been waiting for this, working on this for you guys behind the scenes. Really, you have no idea. This has been weeks in progress. And, I'm so blessed and honored to have you guys as listeners, but really today the floor belongs to our guests. And yes, you heard me right, guests with an S, right? Not just one guest today, but we have many, right? Many for you. So today, this event is a special event. It's not just a regular interview. Today's event, I'm calling the Black Healing Matters Summit, Holiday Healing Summit. So this summit is a gift from us to you to kick your 2018 off the right way, to address the healing issues or anything that you may be concerned about moving forward so that there are no excuses, right? Because a better you makes a better us is a better we, and a better we can change the world. And so today, I have for you 3 guests on the line. Yes, not 1, not 2, but 3, and maybe one more coming up later. So he might pop in because he's a busy man. He's got things to do, but he said he's going to come, so I believe he will. So what I'm going to do is briefly introduce each one of these people one by one, and they're going to have a chance to give you their, kind of in their backstory, their bio a little bit. And also we're going to go straight into the first question because, ain't nobody got time for that, right? So we're going right into it with our first question. And the way this is going to work is that each person will answer this first question. But after that, we'll just kind of throw questions out there. And these are questions that came from you guys, just from my listeners, from the feedback that you've given about mental health and wellness on that. And so I'll ask those questions, and these people are experts. As you'll hear, they're beasts at what they do, and they'll be able to give you insight and answer these questions as they feel fit. And then we'll wrap it up, okay? So I hope that you enjoy this because I'm in the spirit right now. I'm already in the spirit, okay? So our very first guest, we have Miss Danielle Barton. Okay, and so Danielle is a yoga coach, yoga teacher, but she's also a Cali native, y'all. So all you Cali people, implanted to Chicago. So she also, she's a community developer and community builder. So Danielle, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, Danielle, can you just kind of briefly introduce yourself to us and also answer this question? What does healing mean to you?
Absolutely. Yes. So as the other Danielle,
you're the Danielle. You're the Danielle.
As she already outlined, I am a yoga instructor by trade. Really, the best way to summarize what it is that I do is to describe me as a heart healer. So I work with communities of women to really dive deep and look at their stuff. So I'm in the habit of making people uncomfortable, and I coach them and I nurture them through this very vulnerable process, utilizing yoga, utilizing other techniques as well, to really begin to heal the most broken and hurt parts of ourselves, not just so that we're better, but so that we show up better in our relationships and our lives, so that we show up better in our families, ultimately going out and reaching the world. And so this process, this journey of what I call healing for her, is one that's actually very, very personal to me, because I am the first her, if you will. I was the first heart that I had to heal. And one of the major tools that I used to do this was yoga. So in the midst of my own heartache, of my own sense of brokenness, which did eventually spiral to depression and anxiety and really just trying to navigate mental health concerns, right? And this lack of being well, yoga is what I came to. It was the medicine for my heart. It was the medicine for my body. And then when I started to dive deeper and deeper and learn about the system of yoga and the philosophy, it is something that I have committed to taking with me and to sharing with so many people. And so when you ask me, what does healing mean to me? It's exactly that. It is taking what we may deem as poison and turning it into medicine, which is a Buddhist principle, and really looking for the purpose in what we experience. We are not invincible human beings. So we will fall down, we will get hurt, we will need healing. But when a way that we can know, a checkpoint, if you will, for if we've accessed healing, is to look back at our lives and see if we've turned that thing into something that's been beneficial for ourselves and other people who we come into contact with. So it is very much getting very up close and personal with the pain. That's how we access the healing.
Wow. Thank you. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, the road to healing is paved with pain. I agree with that. You're right, but you do have an amazing story. Thank you so much, Danielle.
Thank you for letting me share.
No problem. I'm happy to have you. We're blessed to have you. All right, Shawn is up next. Dr. Shawn Jones is okay, let me get this right. It's a very long title. A National Science Foundation SBE Postdoctorate Fellow of Applied Psychology and Human Development. Now also a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, right?
I'm still a postdoc at the University of Pennsylvania, but from your lips to God's ears, we can hope one day.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So I'm putting it out there.
I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. So again, Shawn, I'm putting out there, the floor is yours. Please give us a little bit of your goodness, and also, what is healing to you?
Absolutely. So first of all, Danielle, thank you so much for that gracious introduction. So as Danielle stated, my name is Shawn C.T. Jones. I am a clinical psychologist by training. And specifically, I was trained around both child and family perspectives around clinical psychology. So one of the interesting things I'll say a little bit about that story is that although I'm trained as a clinical psychologist, really my personal and professional stance is much more around kind of, wellness as opposed to kind of like abnormal or psychopathology per se. So that makes me sometimes a little bit of a departure from a traditional clinical psychologist, but I'm okay with that because I think that that is something that resonates, particularly for our people. I have traveled many different places and states to kind of gather my training. And so that's been a real blessing in terms of just being exposed to different perspectives and different, ways that have impacted the way that I show up personally, professionally, and also the ways that I think about healing. So I'm happy to kind of tackle that first question. I am an acronym and alliteration person. So when I think about healing, what healing is, I'm going to share this idea, right, or this concept of healing as triple H. So the first H that I'm going to share is that healing is about kind of taking holistic steps. And so as Danielle mentioned previously, right, when we're talking about healing, we can be talking at one time about emotional healing. We can be talking about spiritual healing. We can be talking about relational healing. We can be talking about physical healing, right? And so if there are so many elements or right aspects of healing, then we also have to think about a holistic approach that would include things and allow us to hold things simultaneously, like psychotherapy and yoga, for example, right? a holistic approach and steps that we can take. And often, again, as Danielle said before, something like yoga can be in a physical space that can also unlock healing for you spiritually and mentally, right? And so I think about that holistic approach. That's the first H. The second H is that healing honors yourself, right? So part of healing really requires you often to push past either internal or external or both voices that may try to say, this matter is not important enough. There are bigger, things going on in the world, and to really center yourself and recognize that, your perspectives, your worth, is inherent, right? And so that you owe it to yourself to grow and improve, right? So it honors yourself. Also, particularly in our community, we often, thankfully are not, often an individualistic society, right? And so it's not just honoring yourself, but also honoring the bigger legacy, collective healing, right? So thinking about the we as healing as well as the I as healing is important. And then the third H is, so it's holistic steps that honor yourself and that lead to better health, right? And so again, health can be broadly defined. We like to couple often health and wellness, these ideas of resilience, these ideas of thriving, right? And that healing is a part of the process and journey to get you ultimately to the highest levels of health that are relevant for you. So that's how I think about healing.
Wow. Thank you, Shawn. Yes, I totally agree. And I love the acronym, the 3H. Like that's clear cut to the point. I like it. I love it, y'all. I hope that you listeners, Black Healing Matters family, been listening. And if you haven't by now, I know, I'm sure you have. I know you have. But if you haven't yet, please get yourself a pen and paper, okay? Did you hear these nuggets? I'm already writing notes. And I got, I'm hosting. I'm already taking notes. I already have a page of notes, okay? So I really hope that you are taking notes, because Danielle and Shawn just dropped some nuggets, okay? And we're not done yet. Stop, we're not done yet, because we have Mr. Kenny Jones on the line as well. And Kenny is the comeback kid and international best-selling book coach. All right. So I'm going to let Kenny go ahead and introduce himself and also answer the question, what is healing to you?
Oh man, no pressure.
No, it's all love. It's all love.
Again, my name is Kenny Jones. I am the comeback kid, and throughout the interview today, we'll talk more about what that means. I am the author of the Amazon best-selling book, Comeback Season, The Untapped Art of Mastering Your Resilience. So Brother Dr. Jones earlier were saying resilience and that being a part of the healing process. And I appreciate Sister Danielle Barton, who talked very candidly about her own heartbreak. As someone who has gone through literally all types of storms, from being homeless to being a victim of homophobia, publicly losing a career in a social media scandal, like a lot of things that I've gone through, I never really thought about what resilience was until I fell from literal grace in front of everybody. And that for me was that was the hugest wake-up call of my life. And I think that a lot of times, especially with our community, when you hear people describe people, you never hear people talk about resilience. So for example, if I'm saying to someone, oh, describe Danielle, most people would be like, she's smart, she's successful, she's fun, she's witty, but nobody says resilient. And the reason why people probably won't say that is because we hide a lot of our struggles from our people. And so no one will know we're resilient until people see us struggle. So I wrote Comeback Season after a myriad of different situations. So what I do is I help people embrace their own personal stories of struggle and triumph without shame. And then if that means putting it into a book and releasing that and then getting it out to the world, we'll do that. So I don't like to call myself a life coach. I am a book coach because to me that's tangible and you have to be able to coach people through that. But everybody's life is different. There's one earth, but 7.1 billion worlds. So for me, I don't think that people can, in my opinion, life coach people through things. Everybody has a different story. So what does healing mean to me? Obviously, there are lots of different perspectives about that. My co-guests really were awesome in painting that framework, and I learned a lot from them as well. To me, healing is being uncomfortable and falling on your face and then looking up. Because falling on your face hurts. So you can't heal from something that doesn't hurt. And that to me is what healing is. It's feeling that uncomfortability, feeling hurt, literally probably peeling scabs off of a very uncomfortable situation and you growing from that. Standing firm in your you. And hopefully I'll get to talk a little bit about that as well. But standing firm in your you, standing firm in your fall, and standing firm in your comeback. And that to me is what healing is.
Boom. I want to stand up right now just to like stand in my meat. Woo. Okay. Like, all right, I'm ready. I feel awkward sitting down after hearing that. Like, wow. Powerful story. And first of all, thank you for sharing it. You know, each one of us has an individual story. And to be able to, like you said, I wrote it down, fall on your face and look up and again, scrape off the scabs. I mean, it's not pretty. But y'all make it look great. Really, y'all make it look really good. Because, you know, like you mentioned, I think this is also the double-sided, you know, two sides of the same coin, because, you know, on the outside, many times, especially us as Black folks, we like to keep everything looking good. We keep the facade, but, you know, you can never see that somebody's resilient until you see them go through. So I think everybody up here on this panel has been through, okay? And you have stories and you have tips and techniques to show and to share with us. And so thank you for that. Thank you for all of your introductions. That was beyond what I could have expected. All right, so that leads us straight into the first question. So the way this section is gonna go is I'm just gonna put questions out there, and, you know, any three of you who feels like, you know, I got that one, I can definitely speak on that one, just unmute yourself and have at it, okay? So I'm opening the floor. So this first question is, I think it's a good one, and I think that a lot of listeners will be keen on this question. So what forms of healing do you believe are most urgently needed in the Black community? Take a minute, think that one over. Anybody got this one?
Hey, Danielle. So I actually have a lot of different thoughts to say, but when I saw this question in advance, one of the first things I wanted to say, and hopefully this will give my esteemed co-panelists some additional time to jump in and drop further jewels than I'll be able to. But when I read that question, one of the first things I thought about is wanting to make sure that we, as a Black community, understand that we are entitled to the full spectrum and extent of healing and issues. And I feel that, you know, sometimes, you know, we can get in murky water when we start getting around language that suggests that, you know, there are things that we are entitled to heal from, or things that we have the corner market on healing for, or don't. You know, that's not a thing that Black people need to heal from. That's not our market. That's not our issue. And I think that, you know, as, you know, Brother Kenny Jones just said, you know, one earth, but 7.1 billion, you know, worlds. So this idea, right, that, you know, we only have certain types of things that we could heal from, I think is, you know, a very kind of myopic view. So I wanted to just start off by saying definitely think there are some specific things. I'll throw some things back out, but I wanted to encourage us to feel the freedom to be able to feel that if there's any hurts or there are any particular domains and areas of life that we feel agentive, to be able to feel that we deserve healing in those realms, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's paramount to point out that as a community that we come from very deep rooted scars that we inherited without asking for them by virtue of what happened to our people. So our healing mechanisms have always rested in what our ancestors did, depending on who you believe in or who you pray to. That may be Allah, that may be Jesus, whoever, but there was some dependence on a higher space or a higher power. And what that, or in some levels, can mean is that we don't feel like we have our own power. And I do think that on a lot of different levels, we have to get back to that space. And this idea of healing ourselves by connecting with ourselves. A lot of times when we go through things, this is probably why there's a stigma around it. Grandma would just tell you to pray and then just leave it alone. But nobody felt confident or comfortable enough to say, hey, I'm struggling with this thing. I don't know how to get through it. Either A, because you may feel like I'm weak, or whatever the case may be. So I do think, in addition to that point, we must find our power in how we were able to connect with each other by just saying what's wrong.
Yes, definitely. And to even go a step further in connecting with ourselves in order to access healing, a big part of that is collective healing. So being able to heal in community is so essential. And whether that means a community of Black women, a community of Black men, a community of Black men and women, a community of human beings, we are not designed to be alone. We look for connection, we crave connection, and that is where our healing is definitely going to come from as a people, absolutely. And so, as you mentioned, sometimes not wanting to say what's going on, and us having this need to speak out when we're hurt, when we're in pain. Be intentional, be preventative, and create a community before the thing happens. Create a support group. Be intentional about finding like-minded people who you know are going to ride for you, who are going to have your back, who are going to hold you up and lift you up in that time of need, and who are going to support you through and through, right? So collective healing is absolutely paramount. And if I had to choose one modality, it would be love with a capital L. And I realize that love for so many of us can have so many different definitions or connotations, but I'm talking about a love that is innately divine. And if our healing and our connectivity is not rooted in that, then I'm not quite sure that healing is possible.
So true. That is so true. I couldn't agree more. Wow, I couldn't agree more. The whole healing thing, I've actually asked this question on the show, and a lot of people, came with different answers and kind of different perspectives, if you will. But I think you guys really nailed it down as far as what does healing actually mean, and how we can usher in better and more healing, especially within the next year. Okay, next question. I'm going to put it out there. So, what do you see as the greatest obstacles to our Black people's healing as a people? And how do you believe they came to exist? So I think you kind of touched on this, Kenny, with, how, the whole spiritualizing our mental health issues, but anyone else want to add to that? How you think these problems came to exist?
Yeah, sure. So absolutely. So I think Kenny was spot on. And, as someone who studies the impact of racial discrimination on mental health and well-being, I would be remiss if I didn't call those scars as what they were. So yeah, I mean, the vestiges, the legacy of oppression and slavery and Jim Crow and segregation and all of those things, not only do they have, such a perverse impact on the healing areas that may be very relevant for the Black community. So family things, healing in spaces that were supposed to be protected but haven't always been, i.e., for example, the church. It's another space and just the relationship between the Black community and the church. Right. And I think another impact of that, in addition to those areas and spaces for healing, is that it also, as Kenny said, has impacted the ways in which we show up. And so there's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of silencing traditionally that has gone on with regard to really acknowledging our pains and those scars and those hurts. And that some of that is well-founded. I mean, some of it is really well-founded. It's kind of this double-edged sword of protection, right? So when you think about things like the strong Black woman hypothesis, or you think about things like John Henryism or cool pose, these are things that, like, on one hand can be protective, and then on the other hand can really be unhealthy. So it's this interesting way in which our people have attempted to be resilient, to protect themselves, and it's kind of has some repercussions if it's not really seen and addressed. So I think that's how some of that stigma shows up, really. And then there's also a healthy, in some ways, mistrust of broader systems, right? If you look at things such as the Tuskegee syphilis trials, like, there are reasons that folks may seek out or fail to seek out certain areas of healing in a traditional Western sense, for example, like going to therapy. As a therapist, I know this to be true, right? And some of that is very well founded because of the stuff that were done to folks. And you look at things like The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, like, there are reasons why we have a mistrust and a healthy mistrust of certain perspectives around healing as well. So I think it's this interesting gumbo that comes to kind of brew, and that we kind of have to really wrestle with when we're thinking about making strides in healing.
So true.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead, Danielle.
I have a question for you, Shawn. From your professional perspective, you were talking about the mistrust of our people, and definitely how it's well-founded. But is it accurate to classify it as a healthy mistrust if it's preventing us from seeking out healing modalities?
Whew, all right, sorry, we had some technical difficulties there, but we're back. So we're relentless here on your behalf. So Shawn, I'm sorry, you got cut off mid-sentence there, but can you go ahead and finish that thought that you were mentioning?
Absolutely, yes. So first, yes, this is part of of being resilient. So here we go. In the spirit of resilience, I will say, so I think one of the questions that was being asked was, can we really call mistrust of kind of, I would say, the broader American health system healthy if it leads us away from actionable and actually beneficial healthy practices? And so I think that's a question and a point that's well taken. And I to clarify, I'd like to say that oftentimes, if you think from, or folks who are part of the system on the other side, right? So, working in university spaces, working in clinical spaces, I often get berated with, why don't Black people go to therapy, or why, is there this, or they don't take, medications, or, which first of all are overblown stereotypes, number one. But the healthy part of what I'm talking about and speaking to is that if we talk about mental health service utilization, for example, and that's divorced from a conversation as to the broader injustices that have been done in many systems, including the health system in this country, then we're really missing ways that we can intervene and really address some of the stigma that there is around mental health seeking and more traditional, quote unquote, again, Western medicine spaces. Also, though, I think it's important for us as a community to be able to discern and disentangle between what happened to our ancestors and having and carrying a healthy appreciation for that, but also not allowing that to be something that stops us from engaging around, again, Danielle, as I think you were getting to, those beneficial practices. And so I think that requires, outlets like this to really help us to discern and really question and ask ourselves and others. It requires collective action for us to really say, yeah. Like, I know, grandma logic says that we don't go, to the shrink, but you're really struggling. Let's talk about it, right? So I think there are ways to push past that. I also think that on this side, I also fight on our behalf to recognize the systems that lead folks to maybe have a mistrust. And so hopefully that helps to clarify my statement.
Yes, thank you. It does.
Good points. That is so true. And actually, we talked about this a little briefly on the show a few days back, or maybe last week, about how there's this kind of mistrust, between the Black community and the general medical establishment, and that it is, it's there for a reason, right? It's not random. And so thank you for bringing that point up, because I think that will definitely speak to somebody who may be on the fence, or is trying to decide whether to go with grandma logic or not. Which I like how you put that, grandma logic. I'm gonna write that down. That was good. All right. So thank you so much, Kenny, Danielle, and Shawn, for your time. I know that you're all super busy people, and I'm so thankful for you for, sticking this out with me, being resilient, and just showing up the way that you do on behalf of the Black Healing Matters family. I just want to thank you so much, okay? And this final question is going to kind of close us out. And with this final question, I hope that you guys can also share any way that our listeners can get in contact with you. If any way you feel free, if you want to give your phone number, you don't have to do that. But any projects that you have coming up, anything that you're working on, or that you'd like listeners to know about as resources, or if they just want to reach out to you, how can they do so? So you can round up this last question with all of your contact information, okay? All right, so the last question here is, and this is gonna be one by one, so we'll start with Shawn. Okay. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We started with Danielle the first time, right? So let's start with Danielle. No, you don't want to? Danielle was like, Shawn, yeah, Shawn. Okay, we're gonna keep the order, all right? We're gonna keep the order and be resilient. Danielle, you first. Okay. Shawn is gonna be next. And Kenny, you're gonna close us out, okay? All right. So the final question here is, what are some actionable steps that listeners can take now to start 2018 off on the road to their highest and best self? Okay, Danielle, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. I was trying to think of the most concise way to answer such a question with such depth. And I'm actually going to be hosting a women's retreat in 8 days that focuses on this very topic. And that retreat is 4 days. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get 4 days worth of content into about 30 seconds. So
I believe in you, sister. I'll do it. You can do it.
So the simplest answer is to get clarity. Get clarity. And start to look at the tools that you have available to you right now. So just like we all echoed at the beginning of the podcast and we talked about getting clear on our story, go back to your story. All of the answers for your healing are found in your pain. And so if you're looking to figure out, well, what is my best life going to look like? Go back to that darkest time. Find the story in that, find the purpose in that, and then get clarity on not just what you want to do differently, but how you want to use that. Again, right? Getting uncomfortable, getting up close and personal with the story, with the pain, and figuring out how you're going to use that as a catalyst to propel you forward in 2018. So one way is to break up your life into different categories: health and wellness, home and lifestyle, right? All of these different categories, career and contribution, romantic relationships, so on and so forth. And a lot of times what we want and our truest self, our most resilient self, is going to be found in that backstory that we're running away from, that thing that we're trying to just keep on the back burner and we hope that no one sees. That's what's going to tell us what we don't want. That's going to give us hints towards what we do want, and that a lot of times has the answers for how we get there. So start with getting clear on what's my story, what am I going to extract from my story, right? Using the poison as the medicine, and then figuring out how am I going to let this show up in every single area of my life. So it's not a small task. It's not an easy task, but it's actionable. Get some pens, get some papers, set some time aside. That's how you'll show up as your best self.
Ooh, love it. Yes. That C word, clarity. I mean, that's a bad word in some circles, so I appreciate that. You're right. And that's something that I think will really help the listeners to gain clarity. And like you said, I like that, use the poison as the medicine. Good stuff.
Yes. So if you're interested in learning more about this, really having a full immersion experience, you can get information about the retreat and future retreats, because it is something that cycles. Go to bit.ly, bit.ly/sow the seeds 2018 to get information about this 4-day immersion experience and how to manifest as your truest self. And you can, of course, find me on Instagram at healingfor her.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. And I hope that you guys, the listeners, will connect with her, because she really is awesome. And she's beautiful, you can see. Right? So that's a shameless plug. She's beautiful. Right? It's a great reason to follow her Instagram. Okay. Also, all the healing stuff, too. Of course, that's very important. Don't forget about that. All right. Shawn, Dr. Shawn, future professor at the University of Pennsylvania, Dr. Shawn Jones. Can you give us your take on this question?
Wow. Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much, Sister Danielle Barton, for that. I'm actually going to kind of piggyback so as not to be redundant. So I would say that definitely that getting that clarity, that time of self-reflection is important. And one of the things that I would really advocate for is that during that time of clarity, whether it's by yourself or with others on a retreat, that you have some grace with yourself. This season, the end of the year, the holiday season, can often be a time where folks lament and regret. And if that's left unchecked, that can really, lead us kind of down in this time. And it's a lot of the places, unless you're living somewhere tropical, it's also cold, and those things play together. And so really having grace while you're seeking that clarity, while you're doing that self-reflection, right? To understand, okay, maybe I'm not where I want to be. Maybe I'm not #living my best life yet, but I'm also seeing this as a process. Is the other piece that I want to put toward the clarity piece, right? So not seeing it as this kind of, period, endpoint, 2017 is over, so I have to be here, but really seeing kind of this overall idea as an arc of a process, I think is something to be helpful while, it's, you know, it's actionable, but also I think helpful. And then the other thing that Sister Danielle Barton has said before, and I'll say again, is that, and this is my personal opinion about how I think we are aligned as a people. You don't have to do it alone. So I would say an actionable thing is to find, you know, where 2 or 3 are gathered together, right? Find you 1 or 2 other people who are likewise committed, and maybe at different parts of that commitment or in different parts of that process and journey, but are all united under this idea, this umbrella of being committed to improving, whatever improving looks like for those folks, and get together. So you're in community, you're in accountability, you're in commiseration in positive ways, is what I would say. And then just lastly, just start small. I think sometimes we feel like we gotta, you know, come up with the best thing to launch ourselves, right? Start small. Remember, like, things like, you know, getting into a routine on this side of 2018 might just help, even if it's a little small thing that you do, even if it's just journaling, even if it's just writing some ideas down. That's an accomplishment. That's a win. And to not, again, to going back to the grace part, to understand like that's good. That's better than not having that when the clock strikes midnight. So hopefully that is helpful in some ways. I am going to give a couple of quick ways in which you can stay connected with me. I would love to talk with anyone in under the sound of our voices collectively about any of the work that myself or the broader collective that I'm a part of, which is called the Racial Empowerment Collective at the University of Pennsylvania. So if you're interested, we do a lot of things around teaching kids how to talk about race, teaching parents how to talk to kids about race, teaching educators. You can find us collectively at recastingrace.com, recastingrace.com. For my kind of personal musings, you can find me at Twitter sometimes, at SCT Jones. So Shawn Christopher Tracy Jones, at SCT Jones. And then lastly, I am one half of a mental health wellness kind of blog, YouTube channel called Our Mental Health Minute, Re and CT's Mental Health Minute. If you type in Our Mental Health Minute on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, you'll be able to find us. Season 2 is launching right at the beginning of 2018, and we tackle stigma. We take mental health topics and make it plain. So please follow us. And thank you so much again, Danielle Ruffin, for having us and hosting us. I appreciate you.
My pleasure. And I gotta say thank you to you, Shawn, not just for being here today, but for the work that you're doing as well. I've listened to Our Mental Health Minute quite a few times, and y'all, Shawn be singing, he be acting, he brings it, okay? Like, if there's somebody who's committed to this healing thing, I've never seen someone, especially people in academia, unfortunately, academians tend to, I don't want to generalize, but, they don't tend to be the most down-to-earth, approachable, comical, humorous type of people, not like Shawn is. So Shawn is really funny. If you ever get to see, if you have a chance to go and see his Our Mental Health Moments, Our Mental Health Minutes with his partner as well. They're hilarious, but also very informative. So really appreciate you because those things, they're great. And I appreciate you being here today. All right, last but not least, rounding us out today, my man, the comeback kid, right? Mr. Kenny Jones. Can you give us your take on this question?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Again, my co-panelist, I've been blown away this entire evening. So first of all, I want to just honor and give thanks to both of you for just helping me learn, even in my space. So thank you both. Some tangible things, in the spirit of continuing to honor what my co-panelists have said. Get clarity, give yourself grace, and then lastly, I will say, be intentional. And when I say be intentional, I mean be intentional about your own steps. We as a people, in a very heavily convoluted way, depend so much on social media. And that's where we get a lot of our permissions from. in my own healing, the first step that I had to do was to stop comparing my behind the scenes to everybody else's movie. I think for me, that step is paramount after you've done the personal work. Because now, after you've done what Sister Danielle Barton said, get clarity, then you have done what Brother Dr. Jones have said, get grace. Now you're going to be outward facing to other people because you're going to be surrounded and inundated by these messages. So do understand that everybody has a ladder, some spilt paint. Things are not all what they seem to be. So stop comparing your behind the scenes to everybody else's movie. That's an actionable step, because once you say to yourself, I don't care that that person is driving a Tesla, has $6 million, is turning up on Instagram, and is always graduating and getting married on Facebook. I don't care, because I have my own stuff. And when you do that, then other things start to come in play. It's very ironic that we're doing this. We're taping this episode on the winter solstice, and there's a chapter in my book called Winter is Coming. And yes, I do watch Game of Thrones, but this is an idea that I came up with in terms of if the earth, right? And I said something earlier about this, in all of its glory and its splendor and what it is and how long it has been here, if it can go through a winter where things are dark and gloomy and cold and introspective and shriveled and things are bare, what makes us as its inhabitants any better? Winter is coming for us. And as much as we can, we have to prepare for giving ourselves the permission to get clarity, get grace, be intentional. I don't care how awesome you think your life is. A winter is coming. And the way that you prepare for it is the same way that the animals prepare for winter. They collect their food. For humans, we need to collect our emotional food. They get warm. We need to be around warm people. They get hibernation happening, so you need to get your rest. See, things on Earth is already giving us the answers, in my opinion, as to what we need to do in an actionable way. So for me, what just have been laid out for you by my co-panelists and myself are real actionable things that we all have done in our own lives. So I'll end it there. So if you are interested in reading Comeback Season, you can go to my website, www.kjspeakseasy.com. I also have some other opportunities for you to connect with me on my website if you're interested in talking with me one-on-one about some real talk about mental health and some of the things that I've been through, wanting to belong, losing over 120 pounds, not knowing if I was good enough. We'll talk through that. If you're interested in writing a book and putting your story in the book, I can help you do that. If you just want to, and I like what Brother Dr. Jones said, if you want to learn about my personal muses, then you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, the same handle, KJ_speakseasy.
Whew. I hope y'all felt that like I did. Wow. Thank you, Kenny. That was, yeah, that packed the punch, okay? Yeah, and you're so right about the whole nature, gives us so many of these clues. It's like, it's right there. Very good. Wow, appreciate you. And of course, my sincere, deepest gratitude to each one of you, Danielle, Shawn, and Kenny, for being here today and really pouring out, the value, just bringing it for our guests. I know that people will be touched by this, and I'm so excited to hear the testimonials and the, the feedback and the changes and the upgrades and the, all the good things, the because we're laying down seeds. Y'all dropped handfuls of seeds. You just today, and they're gonna grow. And so I'm so excited for the growth because, like you said, man, yes, there's a winter coming, right? Winter is coming, but there's also a harvest. And y'all right now, it's people like you who make sure that there is a harvest. Because if don't nobody plant, there is no harvest. So thank you so much for planting, with us today and really dropping nuggets, dropping seeds, helping our listeners to be better in 2018. And on that note, I'm going to close it out today. Again, this is Danielle here at the Black Healing Matters podcast. And as I always close out every show, I tell you, please be blessed. And as always, Black Healing Matters.